Today we're going to be speaking with Robin, and we got Michael Carmichael with us as well. So, Robin, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in helping vets with the disability ratings?
Absolutely. My name is Robin Hoon, and I am the Director of Medical Evidence for Trajector Medical. My history is I was an ICU nurse for over 20 years, working as an ICU educator, working at the bedside, charge nurse, did all those things, and knew a lot about medicine from my experience in the hospital in a clinical setting. And I was lucky enough to meet the founder of my company, Gina Uribe, who is a nurse practitioner who used to work at the VA Medical Center. And as she was working, she was seeing many veterans who were struggling to get VA benefits, disability compensation, when they clearly had conditions that were connected to their military service. And it really bothered her. And she started helping veterans, while at the VA, she started basically helping them develop medical evidence that could support service connection and help them get the benefits that they qualified for. Pretty soon she would get to work at 4 a.m. There'd be 20 veterans outside her door lined up to meet with her. And it really turned into a full-time job because so many veterans needed that help. Eventually she left the VA Medical Center and she started her own company doing this. And along the way, she helped a Navy veteran called Jim Hill. He's our co-founder. And he's a businessman, and he asked her one day, Gina, this is what you're doing for veterans is so important and so needed. How many veterans are you able to help? And she very proudly said, well, I helped over 200 last year. And Jim Hill said, you need to be helping 20,000 veterans a year, and I can help you scale up what you do. So that's how the company started. That was about 10 years ago. I joined about 8 years ago. And when I joined, we had about 30 employees. We were lucky to help 100 to 150 veterans a month. And now 8 years later, we have over 2,000 employees. We assist regularly 7,000 to 10,000 veterans a month. And we're the largest company in the world that does this. We have several branches of Trajector. We have Trajector Disability that assists with Social Security disability. We have Trajector Medical, which is the branch that I work for, that assists veterans with disability benefits. And what we focus on is we focus on the medical evidence that supports the claim, because ultimately the VA is going to make their decision based on the medical evidence, right? And many veterans don't go to the doctor, for all kinds of good reasons. They frequently don't go to medical on active duty, so there's not a lot of documentation frequently of their injuries and their disabilities that they developed while they were serving. And when they get out, they avoid doctors like the plague, just like nurses do, by the way. We're bad patients as well. But frequently that lack of documentation really causes problems when it comes to showing that they suffer a chronic disability that's linked to their active duty military service. So, what we do is we do a full evaluation. We have 150 nurses on staff. Every one of our clients gets a consultation with a nurse for a couple hours. Sometimes that lasts 4 hours, depending on how many health conditions the veteran has. And we do an analysis, so kind of a root cause analysis to see if any of those conditions could be linked to their active duty military service. Then many veterans are exposed. That Gulf War veterans, as you guys well know, were exposed to all kinds of airborne toxins. The VA has conceded that exposure causes all kinds of chronic disabilities like headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And the PACT Act actually expanded that list. And many veterans are unaware that they qualify for service connection and compensation for disabilities that they suffer from that related to exposure, right? So we make those connections. If they had an injury or a traumatic event on active duty that has caused mental health problems, we develop evidence to support that. We use objective screeners that are supported by research to document their symptoms as they line up with a DSM-5 diagnosis to make sure that the VA, even if they don't go see a psychologist or psychiatrist, they have evidence that they have chronic mental health symptoms that could help the VA understand that they are suffering from mental health symptoms. So, we put all that evidence together in a packet, send it to the veteran electronically. The veteran can choose if they want to file it or not. The veteran tells us what to work on. We say, listen, we've identified these 10 things that you could qualify for. What do you want, to pursue? You tell us. The veteran's in the driver's seat when it comes to what we do, right? We say, we've identified all these things that you could qualify for. You let us know what you would like us to work on developing evidence to support. And we go about our job of putting the pieces together. We provide nexus statements, medical opinions, linking their condition to military service. It's very effective what we do.
What do you think about all of this, Mike? Do you think that this could have helped you on your way, or would it have made it harder? How do you feel about companies that are helping veterans like this, but for profit?
For me personally, I utilize a company like this mainly due to the fact that I didn't want to deal with the bureaucracy of the VA. I didn't want to deal with the constant back and forth and the appeals and all that. So I'm for it, but I also believe that the veteran themselves needs to do research on the company that they choose to work with, so they make sure they're going with somebody that's
getting the most bang for their buck.
Most bang for their buck, but they also don't want to be with a company. I wouldn't want to be associated with a company that's just in it solely for the money.
Right. For me, Robin, aside from being the president and founder of Check-A-Vet, I'm also the director of the Western Kentucky Veterans Coalition under Murray State University. So a lot of what I do is trying to connect veterans to their benefits. What a huge suicide risk factor, money or lack thereof, and also a legal struggle to get something could be. I'm going to be honest, up till now, I haven't really referred anybody to companies like this, but I'm open to it. I like it. I just need to understand it. And your introduction really helped me understand that. Normally, what I would try to do is connect veterans to their resources that they already have, that they don't know are there. Their local VFW, their American Legion, many counties and townships or cities will have veteran support officers whose job it is to, one, identify. Not very many of them do a great job marketing their availability or their wanting to help veterans get their benefits, I don't think, because there's so many veterans that are completely disconnected to their health and financial benefits. But I think that this is the fourth and long, and you need to get a first down or score that touchdown program, this type of thing. So, man, let's talk more about what normal fees are and how people could get involved with what you're doing.
Absolutely. And I want to make it very clear that we support veterans getting all the free help that they can. We are a for-profit company. We have poured all our profits into growing the company to help as many veterans as we can, right? And we believe we have an impact on preventing suicide because of what you just said, Michael, about the financial struggles can really impact somebody who's at the end of their rope, right? It can make it a lot worse. And our fees, it's risk-free. If a veteran uses our services and doesn't have an increase in their monthly benefit, they don't owe us anything, right? So we do a lot of work for free because sometimes veterans are denied even with good evidence. And so it's a risk-free proposition. We recommend that veterans do it themselves. Go get a VSO, get the free help, do it all on your own and get to where you can. And when you get to where you can and you feel stuck, that's when we could possibly help and help show those connections to things that they're not service connected for. So our fees are 5 times the monthly increase. So here's an example. Veteran comes to us, they're receiving $500 in compensation a month already, right? Or nothing. Say they're receiving nothing and they've tried and they're not service connected for anything. And with our help, they end up receiving $500 a month in monthly compensation. They would owe us 5 times 500. So they would owe us $2,500 flat fee. All the medical evidence that we develop, if the veteran chooses to appeal their case, if they were denied after our services, those medical opinions and nexus statements can make a tremendous difference if a veteran chooses to appeal. If that medical opinion that we created for them that lost at the regional office wins their case on appeal, they don't owe us any money for that. That's their win, their money. We don't charge for that. So we only charge for what wins at the regional office. If a veteran, we can write a fantastic private medical opinion or nexus statement. Frequently, The regional office will make their decision based on that VA examiner's opinion most of the time. If the examiner's opinion is negative and our opinion is positive, the veteran might still lose that, that disability and not be service connected. But they can appeal it on their own with the evidence already of record that we provided. And that can be critical in showing, equal evidence for and against. There's a negative opinion from an examiner. There's a private positive opinion. By law of equipoise, if it is equal balance, if the VA sees both opinions as just as probative, the veteran will prevail and end up winning that on appeal. And again, Michael, we do not charge any money if they pursue it on appeal with the evidence we've already created and they win. They do not get charged for that from us. So it's a one-time engagement. We develop all the evidence that we can at the regional office. We are not lawyers. We're not VA accredited representatives. We don't file. The veteran chooses to file. We provide that evidence packet to the veteran. If the veteran doesn't want to file it, they don't have to file it. If they choose to file it with our evidence and it's successful, they would owe us that 5 times that monthly increase. And hopefully they continue to receive that increase amount every month, hopefully for the rest of their life. Now, as we know, the VA can lower ratings later on based on future examinations. That can happen, but most of the time conditions worsen over time as people age. It's uncommon that they get better. Sometimes they do. So we can't make any promises that it's for life, but most veterans are going to continue to receive that additional compensation for the rest of their life.
So it sounds like you guys work on a different model than other companies that I've had experience with. So a lot of these companies, they actually tend to drag out the claim so they can get a higher back pay and take a percentage of that. Like me, myself, when I did it, I ended up paying $17,000 to the company to help me because they took a percentage of the back pay. And you guys, it sounds like you guys aren't doing that. You're just doing a flat fee based on the monthly, that first month increase.
That is correct, Mike. We don't charge any percent of the back pay. That a lot of the VA accredited lawyers do charge for an appeal. They will charge that 33 1/3% of the back pay. That is correct. We don't do that. It's a one-time fee. It's 5 times the monthly increase. And a veteran who files at the regional office, the date that they file is their effective date if they end up winning that claim. It usually takes about 5 or 6 months to adjudicate a claim at the regional office. If they win, they're going to get paid back that 5 or 6 months, and that usually covers our fee. You know what I mean? And then they'll continue to get that increased benefit there on out. So most veterans find that retro pay that they get because of that 5 or 6 month time frame that it takes to adjudicate the claim more than covers our fee that they owe us. So it's really we're very successful at this. I can tell you that not all veterans that we help, we do everything we can based on medical research, based on these connections, based on exposure, based on all these things. We can't ever promise a veteran that we're going to be successful because it's the VA's decision, right? It's not our decision. But we do know that medical evidence can really make a difference in ensuring that they get a VA exam. Number one, if a veteran files for a condition that they currently have, say they file for diabetes, here's an example, and they weren't diagnosed with diabetes on active duty, okay? If they just file diabetes without any evidence on how that is linked to their active duty military service, the VA is going to look in their service records and see that they didn't have diabetes on active duty. And very likely
to find things that led to their type 2 diabetes that they were exposed to, link them to their current situation and through their service to the diagnosis, right? How did that work for you? So you used a different type of model and it sounded like did you use a lawyer instead of?
No, it was a medical company and I'm very happy with the results, but at the end of it, it ended up costing me, I want to say it was $17,000. What happened with me is I'd gotten 50% disability on my own. And after 2 years of seeing a psychiatrist at the VA, she had asked me, do you mind if I ask you what your disability rating is? And I told her, and she said, have you ever thought about filing a claim and trying to get that raised? And I was happy with 50%. But now that a psychiatrist at the VA is telling me hey, you need to think about doing this, That's when I decided to hire a medical company to help me get it done, just so I didn't have the back and forth. I didn't want to deal with the back and forth and the appeals and all that stuff. So I hired this company, and we went through all of my stuff, my VA medical records, and they sent me to one of their doctors or screening doctors or whatever. I went there, they verified all the stuff that was in my VA record, and we had a 10-minute conversation. And I went back home, and like 2 months later, I had a report sent to the VA. I had another CMP exam after that, and I went there to the CMP exam, said the same thing that I told you guys about psychiatrists and all that stuff, and they read the new report and did what they did, and we sent it off to the VA, and then I got 100%. And then once I got that, it was the difference. So I went from 550% disability, which I think was like $500 a month, to 100% disability, which was now $4,000.
You started at 50%. You said you were 500% disabled.
Oh, excuse me.
You take 2%.
So I was 50%
You're
disabled.
after 100 anyways.
But anyway, so at 50% disabled, I think it was $500 a month. And then at 100%, it jumped up to $4,200, if I'm not mistaken. So what they
The
did
difference between 90% and 100% is like $1,200 or $1,300 a month. What the hell?
But what had happened with me is they took the difference of the 50 and 100%, which was what, like $3,000 almost, and multiplied it times 6 or 7 months or whatever, and pretty much took every bit of the back pay. So I had pretty much nothing once I got the back pay. And I got, oh man, I think I had like a $22,000 in back pay that I got, and they took like 17 to pay.
I thought that the threshold was about a third. Are they? Is this like Earl Shive's car lot across the street from Fort Campbell, where they can take advantage of veterans and soldiers, or what?
I can explain a little bit of that, Michael. If you're a VA accredited representative, you have to follow VA rules for VA accredited representatives. A VA accredited representative can charge a maximum of 33.33% of back pay. A reasonable fee, they say, is 20%, but the maximum that under the law is, I believe, 33.33% of the retro pay.
I'm sorry.
VA has set a reasonable fee as 20% of the back pay. And if a VA accredited representative charges 20%, the VA will actually garnish that 20% out and actually send it straight to the representative. That's how it works. But if the fee is over 20%, they will not garnish, and the lawyer or representative has to collect that 33.33% from the client by themselves, right? So the VA likes that 20% and supports that, and that's why they will actually garnish that 20% of back pay and provide it directly to the representative. So it bypasses it never gets to the veteran's pocket.
That's great.
I received the back pay, and then I turned right around and made a payment, is how it worked with what I did.
Right.
Yeah, that's because, Mike, because they were charging you over that 20%, the VA didn't garnish it, so that's why you had to pay it. Yeah.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. I was not happy with the fee by any means. But when I was going through this and thinking about it, I'm like, if this works, then I'm set. You know, I didn't like the idea of paying that much money, but for me, the long term, I cared more about than short term.
I mean, if you think about it, even a 10% increase, like even if a veteran's not rated and they win 10%, that 10% is what, $150, $160 a month. But over your lifetime, you're talking $80,000, $100,000, you know, depending on what your age is, right? So a fee for that 10% win for us would be $600, $700, and the lifetime benefit of that is going to be, you know, $80,000 for the veteran. So when you look at it that way, it's, you know, seems very reasonable.
So is that a normal thing where somebody could come, like, from your company's business model? What is your goal? Or turn anybody away at the door if you don't think you can make enough money from them?
We only turn veterans away that we can't, if they have disabilities that we can't support with evidence, Michael. So here's an example. A veteran may believe that they have a cancer related to exposure when there's no medical research that shows that link, right? I've had veterans tell me, well, I have lupus from my anthrax vaccines I had in the military. Well, there's just no medical research that shows that link. So if we can't develop a medical opinion for it, if we can't support it with a nexus letter, we tell the veteran, I'm sorry, you're just not a good fit for our services, because we're not going to charge you for a win if we can't develop evidence to support it. You know what I mean? We want to provide value to the client, and we want to develop that evidence that helps show that link or show that increased disability. And
Right.
so if veterans come to us and have something that we just can't assist with, we tell them, listen, we're not a good fit for you. And it's about a 25-minute screening call to find out if they're a good fit for our services. And then they get set up with that medical evaluation by the nurse that goes through an entire review of systems, all body systems. Many veterans have symptoms. They've never gone to see a doctor. They are suffering from conditions and they don't even know it. Like irritable bowel syndrome is a perfect example. A lot of veterans that served in the Gulf region have chronic diarrhea or constipation or gastric upset all the time. Their stomach's never been right since they served over there. And they don't know that it's irritable bowel syndrome. They just know that that's how it is. That's, they're living their life and they're managing it. They're dealing with it the best they can. But that's actually a disability that can be service connected at the VA. And it's considered presumptive to exposure in Southwest Asia.
So you wouldn't turn somebody away if they reached out with a simple 10% tinnitus. Like if they were hoping to get a rating, they're at 0 now, but they have tinnitus. You wouldn't turn them away, but odds are you're going to find something else in there that they're classifying as, well, you're going to find what's wrong with them.
We're going to do a full evaluation and let them know these are all the things that we found that we believe you might qualify for at the VA. And then the veteran decides, listen, I want to go after tinnitus. I want to go after this. I want to go after that, but I don't want to do this other thing. Then
Right.
we focus on what the veteran wants us to support, and we just focus on that.
I really like that. What is your average fee collected in all of the research that you guys do? Somebody reaches out to you. What's the average veteran fee that you guys collect?
I think, it changes a lot. I think the last time I saw it, the average fee was about $4,000. That's average. We have a lot of veterans that pay us, get that 10% and pay us $500 to $800. We have a lot of veterans that might go from 90 to 100%. It's going to be 5 times that $1,200 or $1,300. You know what I mean? If they go from 90 to 100. So it ranges, but the average is probably about $4,000.
Yeah. So that you're getting the average veteran, about $800 increase in benefits.
That is correct. Now I want to make it clear that that is the average invoice. That we do a lot of work for free because the veteran doesn't win. And I'm not counting those. I'm counting just the average. If they get billed, the average is about $4,000. Yeah.
Well, what's the percentage of veterans?
So that's a great question. We've done a lot of analysis of that, and we found that over 70% of people that use our services get a benefit of some sort. They get increased amount. So, that's quite successful when you consider a lot of veterans, that have tried and haven't, are stuck and they feel like they can't get any more. That's 70% is pretty good. We're pretty proud of that, but we do work for free. And remember, that work that we do and those medical opinions, those nexus statements might be effective on appeal. So I'm not counting the veterans that lost with our services, but went on and used that evidence on appeal and won their claim. And, we don't charge for that. That's not something that we track, right?
Mike, did you have to deal with that? Or it sounds like it was just a lot different. You said something about the company you used was more interested in the waiting game to get a bigger slice of the back end.
Because it seemed, I'd have to look up their policy because I don't want to say, that's why I'm not saying a name, because I don't want to say anything that's wrong, even with bad rep. But yeah, it seemed like I talked to them and we would do the little background screening, like what you were talking about, Robin. And then 2 or 3 months would go by, and then we would do another piece of the pie. And then 2 or 3 months would go by, and then it seemed like they drug it out to make that back paycheck bigger, instead of more focusing on let's get this stuff done now.
We have a pretty efficient process. Now, if we have to collect medical records, that can slow us down, right? Frequently, if a veteran sees a doctor and they have a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome, we want to collect that and make sure that gets in front of the VA, right? So Collecting records can slow things down, but generally most of our clients are receiving our evidence packet within 3 weeks of engaging with us, you know.
I think my entire process, if I remember correctly, was 6 months.
What about buddy statements? I know that I worked with a lot of, top tier guys, and there's something in the psychology there where they just don't want to go to sick call. They don't want to do this or do that. Or, I spewed a bunch of BS just to get to go on the next trip to be with my buddies. Buddy statements.
Absolutely. We have a great buddy statement process. It's all electronic. Our clients fill out a form, who their buddy's name, what their buddy's name is, what their email is, what the disability is or event that the buddy witnessed, whatever it is that they want that buddy to make a statement about. It automatically emails, once they submit the form, it emails their buddy electronically. The buddy can sit there and fill out and write their statement and electronically sign it. It comes back to the client, so they have a copy of it electronically to their email, and it comes to us to include in their evidence packet that we send them. Buddy statements can be critical, Michael, for things, injuries on active duty that were not reported. It can make all the difference in the world. So we have a great process for helping a vet, make it really easy for a veteran to get a buddy statement included in their evidence packet. It's a very simple process. It's very effective.
Did you have to do a buddy statement, Turbo, or do you even try?
I tried, but none of the guys, including NCOs that I reached out to, were willing to do a statement. They would say they would do it and then would never get around to it,
It can be challenging to get. I mean, our data shows, and I'll just tell you what our data shows. Our data shows that we have about a 50% conversion rate. So we have a lot of veterans that send that electronic link to their buddy to try to get a statement. We get 50% of those back. So about half the time the witness is willing to make a statement, and about half the time they're not. So that's been our experience with big numbers, at our company. We're just helping the veteran have a really easy way to capture that medical witness statement and include it in their evidence.
Is one buddy statement all you need, or do you need more?
It depends, Michael. Multiple statements can be great. Here's an example. Say a veteran had a traumatic event on active duty, but it wasn't a combat situation, right? And it wasn't reported. It's not in the military records, but it's caused PTSD, for example. Well, they might have a buddy that can corroborate the event because they were there and they witnessed it. But that veteran's spouse or child or cousin might have experience observing their symptoms of PTSD and how severe it is and how it's affecting their life. So they can create a statement about all the things that they've observed over time as they've suffered from that PTSD situation. The first buddy statement corroborates the stressor event, which has to be verified at the VA to get service connected for PTSD. The other statement from the family member supports their level of disability, the severity of their condition, and their rating, right? Multiple buddy statements can be helpful and they can serve different purposes. Does that make sense?
Robin, you're really educating me on the process a lot here because you're giving more detailed information than a lot of the BSOs that I sit down with. Your understanding of it seems a lot more thorough because you know what it's going to take to get them paid, like the buddy statement from the wife and from somebody who was present when it happened. That's wicked smart right there. I love that.
Well, so I was talking to Turbo yesterday about PTSD and about stressor verification, because if a veteran served in a combat situation, the VA concedes that stressor automatically. But many veterans suffer from PTSD from events that are not combat related. And for that, the VA requires this stressor verification component. They require corroboration that the event occurred. If they can't find it in the military records somewhere, and they do a search, the VA does do a search for any military records that show that event happened. But if it's not in the military records, it's really critical for a veteran to have a witness that can corroborate that event. That can help the VA verify that event occurred. So for non-combat witness statement can be critical to helping show that event actually occurred.
And some examples of that could be like MST, unreported MST.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. Yeah.
That's so prevalent these days. In fact, I've heard E9s across various branches saying that sexual trauma in the military, males are actually now a victim more than females.
That is
what's
correct.
making that even worse is the men are way less likely to report an attack than a female is. So
It's really prevalent.
Yeah.
I had a client that I was assisting.
Thanks, Clinton. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah. I had a client that was coerced into sex from their commanding officer repeatedly, and it really messed him up. And he, of course, never reported it because he was trying to climb the ladder in the military. He wanted to be a Navy pilot, actually. He completely changed his track because he wanted to get away from the perpetrator, right? He eventually got out of the military, suffered from severe mental health problems for a long time, filed for PTSD at the VA, but the VA said, there's no report that this military sexual trauma occurred, but he confided in somebody, one person when he was in the military. He found that person and got that person to write a statement that he confided in it, and he ended up winning his case based on that corroboration. So it could be critical for military sexual trauma or any non-combat PTSD situation.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It really is. Good for you guys helping out in situations like that. What about me though? Because they say that I don't have any PTSD. I just went through a huge workup because I'm having some memory issues. But like my PTSD rating for my service is 0, which is hard to believe when you think about, I was in Desert Storm, and then I did a total of 11 tours in combat as a Green Beret and a Ranger, and then later as a agency case officer. So I'm already at 100%. I don't know what else I could get, but
what they're saying is they're acknowledging that you've had a diagnosis of PTSD. They're acknowledging that that is service connected, but they're saying that you don't have symptoms to a compensable level. The VA is basically saying you're service connected for this condition, but you don't have symptoms that affect your social life or your occupational life. It's all based on social and occupational impairment. They're basically saying, Michael, that you don't have impairment. Now, whether that's true or not, it could be that you had a bad exam. Maybe it wasn't very thorough. Maybe they didn't capture all the symptoms that you have. There's a lot of things that it could be that, or you could be very well adjusted. I mean, everybody's different, right? Some people have an experience that causes severe PTSD. The same person who was at that same location and experienced that same thing could actually have compensated pretty well and gotten over that and it not affect them. It's a very individual thing how these traumatic events affect people.
I understand.
And another thing with that, Michael, is that, and I'm not saying that you did this, but I know I did. My first C&P exam, when I went in and I was going through and explaining things, when they asked me the question, well, how are you doing? Well, I'm like, I'm good. But the key to it is telling them, making sure that you tell your C&P examiner how you are on your worst day, not how you are at the moment, but how you are on your worst day.
But your new normal could be 10 times worse than, a civilian's normal. Somebody who never went through the things or that was exposed to the materials and stuff that we were.
It's one of those things, you live inside your head, right? So you're exactly right, Michael. To you, it's normal. If you ask a veteran with PTSD, listen, do you go out to eat at a restaurant? Most people do. And you say, well, where do you sit? And they, a lot of times will say, well, I make sure I'm facing the door. Well, why are you doing that? Well, I got to be ready to, if there's a threat, they think to them, that's normal behavior because to them, it's just, normal, but they don't have perspective on it because you live inside your own head. Right. So
I was saying,
yeah.
So, and it's something that can make sense. I'm not stressed out because I'm sitting by the door. I'm accustomed to it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they asked me like, do you have any, night terrors or war dreams? And I'm like, man, I might get 2 or 3 a year, but I really enjoy the war dreams for me because they take me back to being on the battlefield with my guys. And that was a special time for me. Good stuff. So do this for me, maybe in 5 minutes or less, Robin. Talk us through from you handing somebody a business card to them getting paid and settling up with you. What's the whole process?
Absolutely. Great question. So what we do is, they can go to trajectormedical.com and they can fill out a form. We can contact them, do that 25 minute screening on the phone, basically see if there's anything that we likely could assist with. They get scheduled with that nurse evaluation. If the veteran has time to do it right then, they can actually warm transfer from that intake call directly to a nurse, get them on the phone. We have a lot of veterans that have, on a Saturday or a Friday evening, they have time. They make that call. They get on the phone with a nurse. They can talk to a nurse for 2 to 4 hours. That it can be a long conversation because they're going to explore all the symptoms that they have, all the medical things that they're dealing with, and evaluate how those things might be related to service or not. Then that nurse provides a list. You tell me what you would like us to work on. The veteran chooses. My team goes to work. They take all that information gathered by the nurse about symptoms, about how it affects them. If it was an injury on active duty that was not reported, they get all that documented. All that documentation then goes to our medical team. If they provide records of a diagnosis, we can use that diagnosis to incorporate in a nexus statement or a medical opinion. We develop all those medical opinions and all those symptom statements describing how it affects their life and put that all together into a medical evidence packet. We electronically send it to the veteran. Veteran can review it and see it. If they see something that's incorrect, they can actually change it themselves. They can't change the medical opinion because that's a PDF. But if this statement is incorrect, they can change it. If they see something that they think is wrong, they can contact us. We can correct it, send it back. Once they choose to file it, it's their choice. Again, we don't file on a veteran's behalf. We're not VA accredited representatives. That's the veteran's choice to do that. They click that button and they submit it to the VA. And then they'll get scheduled for VA exams. And that's a critical service that we also provide, Michael. We basically create a summary of all the evidence that we provided them, that they provided the VA. And we have another nurse team that will talk to the client before their VA exams to make sure they understand that evidence and they understand all of the things that they're dealing with so they can stay focused during their VA exam and not get sidetracked on things that don't really matter. Because a lot of veterans don't understand what they need to focus on in that exam. Sometimes it's only 15, 20 minutes.
It's not coaching, that's concentrating.
We do not coach. We're not putting words in the veteran's mouth. We're explaining this is the evidence we've provided you. And, do you have questions about it? And we provide a summary of that evidence for the veteran to review. They can even take that into their exam. It's got bullet points and they can, at the end of the exam, they can review it and make sure nothing was missed during that exam. So we provide that summary that they can use, and it helps that communication between the veteran and the examiner, because the veteran knows, I've got to make sure that I explain this symptom that I have because it's important, and they make sure that they can communicate that. So that's how that works.
I really like that. I think this needs to be, at least for me, my last line of advice when I meet veterans on the street who need help with their disability. Because again, as we started this, I was like, well, go to your American Legion or VFW. No, it doesn't matter if you're not a veteran of foreign wars. The VFW will help you file and go through that process. Normally that's secondary because as they got out, they should have processed in with the VA. If that didn't work and their local veteran support organizations and veteran support officers can't get it to them, I think a referral to somebody like your company is the way to go. It's responsible and it seems fair to me.
Love what I do. I love my company's mission. I can't say enough about how our founders are so focused on this mission to help as many veterans as we can. And again, we're not a free service. We want veterans to use all the free services that they can. Get your ratings, get your compensation that you can on your own. when you feel stuck and you feel like you're still not getting what you qualify for, and you want help with that medical evidence that might support your level of disability or how it's connected to your service or to exposure in some way, contact us and we'll let you know within 25-minute conversation if we can actually help. Right.
Okay. Well, hey, I think that's a great way to put it. If you're stuck, that's when you consider these organizations. But some of my key takeaways were, right up front, we talked about how they're scheduling their fees and whether or not they're accredited by the VA. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So we're not accredited. We don't fall under those rules because we're not VA accredited representatives. We're a private medical service company. Medical evidence services is what we provide. We are not, we can't file for a veteran. We can't, go before the VA and represent them. That's not what we do.
I said accredited, but make sure that you're dealing with a fair and honest company, because there are those out there that clearly.
And you can go to YouTube. We have 1,000 testimonials from clients who have used our services, and you can listen to veterans who have used our services and see what they say. When you help 10,000 veterans a month, we can't make everybody happy, right? There's going to be people out there that are unsatisfied, and we understand that. We do everything we can to try to turn around veterans that are unhappy with our service, but we're always getting better at what we do. We're listening to clients to improve our services. We're always striving to get better at what we do. But there's plenty of testimonials out there from veterans who have used our services, and listen to what they say.
Okay. Well, hey, maybe we can work on having a QR on the end of this. Maybe even it's a Check a Vet podcast specific QR code.
Too small.
We could plug that into the end of this video. Turbo, what do you got? I think that was a great setup. Good catch.
Oh yeah, I think it's great. And I think hit on most of the points we had talked about yesterday. One of the things that was interesting to me that me and Robin talked about yesterday was the fact that most PTS cases are non-combat related. I found that very interesting yesterday.
That is correct. That's VA statistic. That the majority of service-connected PTSD are non-combat. And that was shocking to me to find out as well. But that's true.
Key takeaway. Good.
I think we hit on pretty much everything. I think it was a great conversation.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'd love to join anytime and talk about PTSD, military sexual trauma. I would love to chat about anything on your mind, and I might have a unique perspective with my experience.
I do have an alibi that you say that. What are the top 10 disabilities that you're helping veterans get? 10.
Definitely tinnitus, definitely mental health of all flavors, right? And PTSD, depression, anxiety, adjustment disorder, other trauma, stressor related disorder, all of those things we assist with. We assist with gastrointestinal problems, musculoskeletal problems, injuries that occurred on active duty that, guy injured his knee and now he's got arthritis of his knee decades later, showing that connection that an injury can cause degenerative joint disease later in life. Musculoskeletal is a huge part of what we do. So many veterans get so beaten up physically in the military. So we help make those connections between things that happen in the military and things they're suffering with now. So I would say mental health, hearing and tinnitus, gastrointestinal, respiratory, we also help with. Any disability, any medical condition that a veteran is suffering from, we can do a root cause analysis and see if there's a connection to exposure in the military. Firefighter foam, a lot of veterans don't realize how that forever chemical is causing cancer later on in life. A lot of veterans were exposed to firefighter foam. So there's a lot we can potentially identify that veterans don't even realize that there's a connection between something they were exposed with in the military and something they're suffering from now.
Good job, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll speak again sometime.
Yeah.
Keep in touch